on each side, and I go, hey, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And just about every kind of extreme, either crying, screaming, yelling, just whatever people, that everybody belongs there. There's no, you're not excluded for how you dress or who you sleep with or whatever. It's
But
okay. Every you can.
let me when you get to you go into this class, is there any like warning lights going off in your head or anything that says, this is a class for people who can't function in a relationship? Maybe it's not the right place to find someone to be in a relationship.
Well, where I met her and this thing were two different things, but I have to agree with you.
That's the best place to get a new drinking buddy. Is like an AA or a NA. If you're,
I'm
Yeah.
thinking you don't go to driving school to find a classmate to teach you how to drive.
That's
Well,
All
I
right,
used
go
to
ahead.
hire the arrestees, for tow truck drivers.
Well, they actually might be good because
Yeah.
getting arrested has nothing to do with being able to drive. Usually.
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 So the gal, she has a lot of expectations. Like she goes, you're gonna have to start shaving that hair off the top of your nose. You're gonna have to go to these waking down weekends and the sittings and I'm like, yeah, whatever. As long as I get some, I'll whatever it is, I'll show up. So I noticed that I was
something.
yeah. So I noticed that when before I met her, I was really depressed and miserable and couldn't work and bordering on suicidal. But I wouldn't have done it because I'd worked so hard to make all that money. I was going to at least spend it first.
That's right. That's what I say.
How can you be suicidal if you got all that money?
Well,
That's what I'm saying.
if you're just miserable, it didn't matter.
Oh, I don't know. Go buy some fun.
Yeah, exactly. So she has all these expectations all the time, and it's good for my growth. It gets a little annoying at times, but so one day she says, I want to be with a man that knows himself as consciousness. And I go, well, I'm fairly conscious. She goes, no, it's not like that. You have to know yourself as consciousness. And she gives me a due date for that.
All right, bye-bye.
So I'm a glutton for punishment.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So I go, well, whatever this is, why don't you give me some stories of some people that have done this sort of thing? So she supplied me with the stories. So I read them. And most of the time I'm going to these sittings and things, it's like your turn to cry. And if you don't show up and start crying about something, they'll say, you know what, we don't know you anymore.
Who are you?
Right.
So, it's like the beginning of Fight Club kind of thing you got going on there, right?
Right. So I'm doing plenty of crying, and I even went to a therapist that they recommended, and it's called Core Energetics. And you'd like hold a mattress against the wall and hit it or something, and grunt, and it would stir up old emotions, and you start bawling about something. So I did plenty of this stuff. So I've got this, this due date hanging over my head where I'm no longer going to have the cute French gal in my life if I don't find myself as consciousness, whatever that is.
I think the Buddhists do that too, right? They say, hurry up and get enlightened or you're out. At the monks. Get enlightened or you're out. You're walking down this mountain by yourself.
Oh, man.
So one day, I'm in the tow truck on Highway 1, the same place I ride that motorcycle, and in an area that I'd fallen down probably. Like I fell down once in front of the Dipsy Cafe, I think. I fell down. The bridge was icy, and I didn't pay attention to that sign. So I'm in the tow truck towing this big, ugly station wagon, and I pull up to the stop sign in front of the Fireside Motel, and something's not right. And, my brain was my mind would just run. I'd be thinking about yesterday, tomorrow, what could have happened, what should have happened, who owes me what needs to be fixed. I mean, my mind did not stop running. It was annoying. The voice, I don't want to say voices in my head,
Nice.
but it was too much. And I get to that stop sign, and my mind was quiet. And I start reaching to the heater control knobs or the radio knobs, and I go, wait a minute, it's not too hot in here. There's nothing wrong with the radio. I couldn't figure out what was going on.
Could have been an exhaust leak. That'll do it. Carbon monoxide's a bitch.
That'll get you enlightened. That deprivation of oxygen.
But I'm looking around and I'm like, wow, I'm in like a super altered level of consciousness here. And I go, this must have been what she was talking about. And I'm like, wow, I can't drive like this. This is not. But I'm like, then I go, wait a minute, I've driven drunk before.
Allegedly.
No, statute of limitations again.
Okay. So what do you think brought this on? This.
Well, apparently these folks in Waking Down, and this guy wrote a book about it. It's called The Second Birth. A guy named Bob Valine with a V, like Victor. He wrote a book called Second Birth about all these people in this community that have had these awakenings.
Wait a minute, that's called the New Testament.
Yeah.
No, remember, everybody's included in this. In the Christian stuff, I mean, I really respect some of my friends are incredible Christians and very trustable men. But if you show up and say that you like this or that, you might not be included. Well, in this particular group, everything's included, especially if you have some uncontrollable emotions.
Uh-huh.
They like people to cry, I guess, right?
Yeah, they do. It's almost a requirement. Yeah. I mean, I remember one guy saying, "I wish I could cry like Phil does."
Oh, so you're sitting at the stop sign.
Yeah.
You're crying, bawling your eyes out, or you're just happy?
No, I'm just in this super happy state, and it's like I've got an energy bubble around me, like nothing matters. It's like one of those, if someone came up, so I'm going to shoot you, and be like, "Oh, that's cool." As if you'd done some heroin. I've not ever done any heroin, but it'd be something like that.
Huh.
Just super blissful state, and nothing matters. It's almost like I was out of my body, but tethered, or maybe watching a movie, and I'm the only character or something.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I limped the tow truck back. I say limp because I had to really concentrate on those lines on the road.
Right.
My previous practices, as I talked about. And I called Pascal, of course, who didn't answer the phone. And I explained to her what's going on. She goes, "Oh, that's the witness awakening." Because apparently there's different stages.
So that was stage one?
Yeah. And apparently in other spiritual pursuits, that's like the highest one. But in Waking Down, they have another one after that. Or there's another painful set of circumstances that come in, just after that. And I'll get to that part.
Alrighty.
So that day, it kind of relaxed enough to where I could function, but it was pretty blissful and cool and everything. But after a couple months of that, I was like, there's something missing here. I just don't really feel like I'm really here. And I didn't ever really like drinking or anything because I wanted to be more here, whatever that meant. So lo and behold, a couple days later, I'm really solid and I'm here. And boy, all that emotional stuff that kept me in my head, it was right there, right up front for me to process. I mean, from shell shock anxiety to sadness to just a whole range of emotions that just didn't have anything to do with what was going on in my life at the time. It was just very strange.
Now, why do you think all this? Were you doing with this? What was the group called again?
Waking down.
Waking Down. Were they doing? I mean, what were you doing with them that you think brought this on? Were you, crossing your legs and humming, or what was going on?
Well, they do a thing called gazing.
Okay. I'll pass on that one, John.
I'm sorry. There's a lot of things that raced through my mind just then, but I'm just going to let it go. Go ahead. Gazing.
So the teacher or the instructor or whatever, the person at the front of the room.
I was going to say Lenny does that at the urinals, but go ahead.
So they would look into the eyes of the aspirant or the student for about 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. And it would kind of stir up the emotions, or it kind of relax you in your body or something. You'd feel more grounded. I just thought it was staring. I thought it was just staring at the guy. Okay, I'll just stare at him. I don't know why. Whatever. I didn't understand it, and I made sure not to ask too many questions because they kind of got annoyed with me after a while because this guy Samuel, he's a Harvard English major, and he slips in some of them funny Sanskrit words and stuff.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So I just couldn't understand him, and I'd raise my hand all the time. What does that word mean?
So when you went into the Waking Down group, did you go in with an open mind, or did you kind of think there's a bunch of kooks and you were just trying to get the girl?
Yeah, the second one.
Okay. And then over the time, how long were you doing this before before.
Oh, years. Well, I think it was about 2 years when I had that thing happen.
You went through this for 2 years?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. All right, so so they won you over after 2 years.
Well, there was a couple people that saw right through my strategy. There's one of the
all the
senior
men,
teachers.
right?
Yeah.
All the other men that were doing the same thing.
Well, they were kind of pissed off because she was just getting ready to break up with a current guy, and I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. So they were all kind of pissed off that they didn't get her. And but this one Asian guy, a teacher, and he just looked at me with disgust. He knew exactly why I was there, and he didn't buy any of it. He knew.
Right.
The other guys might have been a little more naive, but he saw it. He could tell what's going on. But yeah, so I have this awakening, and it's all hunky-dory. But now I'm realizing that this woman, she keeps raising the bar on everything, and nothing's ever good enough. She said the street I lived on, there was too much road noise.
Newsflash, Phillip, that's all women, not just her.
So I even buy a different house on a quieter street.
Not good enough.
No. How'd you know? You know her?
I'm married, I know. You can always do better. No matter what you do.
So now we'd lead into the 220 volts AC. You want to hear that part?
Oh, yeah. I'm very excited about this.
Okay. So we're up in, I sell the business to my brother because I just can't go to drive the stupid tow truck anymore. I mean, it was great money, but dealing with morons and idiots and not sleeping, it was just getting stupid.
Now you couldn't just run the business and not operate the trucks?
I've heard of people doing that. But man, they just robbed the place blind when I wasn't there.
Oh, okay.
And then I got one of those cameras that pans, that goes back and forth. Yeah. Try fast forwarding a panning camera.
Not easy
Dizzying.
to do.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm sure there's a way of doing it. I couldn't figure it out. My brother's been trying now for about 8 years.
So you just gave it up and you sold out. And how did your brother come up with? It must have been a pretty good business by the time you sold out, right?
Well, it was. There was a couple little issues. The Highway 101 that goes through San Rafael, they kept threatening to widen it. So our landlord wouldn't give us more than 3 years lease at a time. And we stored a little over 100 cars at a time. And this town, after dealing with the city government and their zoning, I just had no interest in ever having to move that business. And things were coming. They had started condemning some of the businesses on our street, and I figured time was up. And the equipment at the time was maybe worth $100,000, and I figured if anybody gives me any more than that, I'm doing really good.
Now, did you ever make it on Judge Judy or the People's Court or any of those shows? Because I'm always seeing tow truck companies on there.
You know what's funny? The lawsuit, we used to put people in collection for, talk about insult to injury. If they left their car, we'd end up with a car, and then we'd bill them for the towing and storage.
Right.
So they'd lose the car, and they still owe you the money.
Yeah, and you put it on their credit.
Oh, man. I'm surprised you're still alive. You haven't been shot yet.
Yeah. So I put this guy in collection. It was for $400, $440, and lo and behold, his dad's a lawyer. Mm-hmm. And so I get the letter saying that this is against the law, what we're doing, and that it's a violation of civil code. And so I send a letter back and say, because they said they sold the car. Right. They sold the car. I said, fine, tell me you sold the car too. I'll reverse everything, or send me $200. And so he promptly filed a small lawsuit for $2.2 million.
Ooh.
Wow.
That's pretty big.
And I remember I was in the judge's chambers on the day before trial, and I start talking about the case. And the judge holds up his hand, kind of like Arnold would in the movies, talk to the hand.
Yeah.
And he stops me and he said, the facts in this case are irrelevant. Juries don't like collection agencies or tow companies. Pay him whatever he wants. It's way cheaper than a trial. Okay.
Well, he wanted $2.2 million, though.
The judge said he'd settle for $25,000. I said, I'm sure he would. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Still a lot of money, yeah.
Well, the collection agency paid $15,000. I talked him down to I paid $7,500 or something. So the whole mess cost me about $20,000. And I got a super deal on some tow truck insurance before this happened.
Uh huh.
And